Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. It is Monday, and you know what happens on Mondays. The TTPS join us in the form of Inspector Michelle Lewis. Good morning, Inspector.
Good morning, Ruckus. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am good.
What are we talking about this morning? We're talking motor vehicle fraud, yes?
Motor vehicle fraud.
What does that even mean?
Well, motor vehicle fraud is different to larceny motor vehicle and robbery motor vehicle, which is what persons are accustomed to hearing.
Accustomed? I hope they're not accustomed
to hearing.
Right.
Meaning that the vehicle was stolen.
Right.
Either the person come in front of them and stole the vehicle, or they parked the vehicle and they came back and it wasn't there.
Right. So that's larceny, that's theft. We're talking about fraud now.
Right. So the fraud aspect of it is where, for example, you go to purchase a vehicle from someone or from a company. Like a foreign used vehicle or a second-hand vehicle.
Right.
And you went into an arrangement with someone to purchase this vehicle for a certain amount of money. So there was an agreement, whether verbal or written, and one party did not follow through with theirs. So there was fraud that took place. Most likely the person who has been affected would be the intended purchaser. And the seller would have reneged on the agreement. So that is what we would call, and that is what persons will be charged for, fraud, motor vehicle fraud.
All right, let me just break that down a little bit, right, Inspector? Because what you're saying is, if I come to sell you a car, and we make an agreement, and I say, all right, Inspector, give me $5 for the car, and you say, yeah, no problem, and you give me $5, and I say, right, I go down and get the car and come back, and I just don't come back.
Correct.
That's fraud.
Yes.
Right. And what happens in that case? Do you then have to go to the police and report me, and then police come and investigate and charge me? Yes,
the police will investigate the matter, take the statements and all kind of stuff, and the whole investigative process to determine, of course, the authenticity of it, and then to lay charges accordingly. Right? So we have that happening. We have seen within the data that we got from CAPA that there has been an increase in motor vehicle fraud.
So how can people prevent that from happening to them?
Right, so motor vehicle fraud could be prevented when persons do due diligence. A lot of times when persons hear of the deal, they get excited and they forget the details in relation to a verbal or written contract and what is expected of both parties in delivering on the arrangement. So in the first instance, we want persons to be mindful to check with credit checks to ascertain if this vehicle has any incumbents in relation to a financial institution. In other words,
an outstanding loan.
Correct.
Right.
So if it's a practically new vehicle, it probably still has some mortgage on it, or if the person purchased it, however, it might still have some monies on it. So you need to find that out.
Right.
In the second case, we want, of course, for you to obtain from the owner, the registered owner, the certified copy.
Ah, boy.
Which would show that, yes, in fact, I am the registered owner and I can sell this vehicle.
Okay.
Right? And not that somebody else who's purporting to be the owner presents to you. Correct.
Okay.
Which happens.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you said that you sold your vehicle, but you haven't transferred it yet, ensure that that person transfers the vehicle before they actually present to you an arrangement to purchase it.
Okay, so technically, if you sell the vehicle as an exchange money, you give keys and you do all that and you think that you're legit, but you don't go and organize a certified copy, it is still technically your vehicle.
It is correct. The person whose name appears on the certified copy of the vehicle. So that for anything in relation to that, vehicle, the police will be going to the registered owner. So that vehicle in relation to any criminal offense, that is what we will check. So it's important that even in selling a vehicle, right after or the point in time, you do your transfer.
All right. I wanted to ask about the reverse of that as well, because we talk about the sellers being the guilty party when it comes to the fraud. What happens if the buyers are the guilty party? So, for example, we talk about situations where people get excited about the deal. Some of those deals are like rent to own or something like that.
Right, the work to own.
Yeah, they have work to own or rent to own in some cases. Where I might pay a hefty lump sum down and I say, all right, I'm paying $2,000 a month.
Right.
And you give me the vehicle and I go on with it and I say, all right, I'm there and I have the vehicle and then I stop making payments. Is that considered fraud?
It is, because somebody would have neglected on the arrangement. So what happens that the person at that time will come to the police. In the first instance, they will probably want the police to negotiate a mediation because they really want to sell the vehicle, they really want the money, right? But sometimes, a lot of times you hear where some persons will usually you usually get more of the other type. Not that the other one that you spoke of doesn't happen, but you normally get more of the other type, meaning I would have given 75, 80% of the money, and then I can't get the vehicle, or they come to the police. The person who's selling the vehicle comes to the police and say, this person
didn't finish pay.
Yeah. And then they sell that same vehicle to someone else. So it's a scam.
Okay.
Right, but in the case where you spoke of, where the person now
didn't finish pay.
Yeah. And in talking to the person who's buying the vehicle, who would have purchased some money, you're trying to find out, well, what's the problem? If it is you want an extension of time, as the case may be, because the vehicle has not, the deal, the arrangement, the agreement has not been completed because it's still outstanding.
Right.
So there is where, for example, the legal aspect of it and ensuring that a proper contract was written in relation to that, because some persons of the opinion, well, if I have paid 80% of it, I can hold on to it. But that is not the arrangement, and so there must be stipulation in it. And in that case, now you probably would have to look at a civil matter in relation to getting that money and that arrangement. Now, we also have persons who work to own vehicles which are private, and they work the vehicle as hire, which is contrary to the registration of the vehicle.
Right.
So that aspect in itself is illegal because the vehicle is P. But if you, as you spoke of the rent, the work to own or the rent to own, meaning that, you know, I pay for the vehicle and when I finish pay for it, it is mine, which is separate and apart from hustling vehicle on the road.
Right.
Right? So having said that, now another thing we want to invite or remind persons to do is do some checks on social media. Do some checks. So for example, you are going to purchase a vehicle from a foreign news company or from someone who alleges that they bring in vehicles to sell.
Roll off.
Right. You want to check with Ministry of Legal Affairs to ensure that this company is actually bona fide. And you also want to check on social media and get some reviews in relation to that. It's good too when you have young persons in your family, young adults, to ask to bring them into the whole arrangement when you're purchasing a vehicle, because sometimes they see things and able to whip that social media faster than another person. So it's good when you're purchasing a vehicle for your family to include them into that arrangement.
Yeah.
Also for persons, if you're buying a vehicle and you don't know anything about a vehicle, get the expert, a friend who you trust, to help you with that.
A friend or a mechanic?
Well, a mechanic.
Right.
But there are some male persons who are not mechanics who know vehicles very well.
Okay.
You find a lot of fraud happen with females because they think that women don't know a lot about vehicles. You find a lot of fraud taking place with, you know, where females are concerned.
And that is fraud in terms of me giving you a car that may not be working properly and telling you it's working properly and taking the full price on everything.
Correct.
All right.
So you bring a mechanic to check, or somebody who knows a vehicle very well, and they'll be able to guide you in relation to say, well, yeah, this is a good buy. When we look at the data from all the divisions, particularly where fraud is concerned, Southern Division has the highest amount, over 50% of the reports from the Office at Fraud Squad is in relation to motor vehicle fraud.
Wow.
So we see where we have that, we have the officers who will be doing some outreach in the areas to guide persons in relation to the purchasing of a vehicle and what to look for. So vehicles are expensive. It's really expensive. And to just take your hard-earned money and without doing due diligence and checking and double-checking and make sure that you have the proper receipts and the contract is as clear as day, that if either side renege on it, what are the consequences for it? And not, because some contracts are one-sided and not for both parties. So for, like you mentioned, where the person would have paid 80%, and now 20% is outstanding. That should have been in the contract.
Okay, in the percentages or in terms of what happens if you don't pay the full amount?
Correct. And if it is that you are allowed a year to pay and you do not pay in the year, what is going to happen? What are the probabilities? All those things need to be detailed in a contract. And it's always good to get the advice of an attorney when doing up that contract. Or if you have one, a template that you can use, you can do that as well.
But
But vehicles are expensive.
I think one of the key things about contracts is making sure that you read them as well, because
Correct.
you could get a nice template and you could do it up and give it to the person. Yeah, they sign and go without really checking it out. So I
Yes.
also want to advise that, you read the contracts that you
Yes.
sign. Don't just sign because you're excited and you want the car.
Yes, and,
Right.
and the words and the English that is used, you can understand it as well.
Boy, that's a whole other conversation, because sometimes in them contracts they use some kind of English that I show the Queen stopped using a long time. But that's a different story altogether.
So you
Any
can
other
check
tips you have for us?
Election and Boundaries Commission to make sure that the person who's selling the vehicle is a bona fide person.
Ah.
It's important, and like I said, Ministry of Legal Affairs, Ministry of Work and Transport as well.
Okay.
So all these agencies have data online that you can actually check. If you get their ID number, if you get their driver's permit number, if you get the name of the company, you just go onto the different ministerial websites, and it will help you as well to make a sound decision that you do not be a victim of motor vehicle fraud.
Yeah, because that's key. Like you said, cars they're not cheap.
No, they're not cheap.
Not only least,
And
but
to part with money.
yeah.
Yeah. And you see a lot of person want to buy a vehicle for Christmas. You want to have that, ride for the end of the year for your
Yeah.
family. And so we're expecting, so this is one of the reasons why we're here this morning and tackling it early with that data that we got from CAPA, that persons will be looking to purchase.
Yeah. So
And,
for me, the big takeaway today, guys, is do your research when it comes to purchasing a vehicle. Research the company, research the persons, the individuals. Make sure that you do your diligence and check with all the various agencies, the state agencies, because they can help you out at the best way possible. Inspector, let me say thank you so much for joining us
Always
this morning.
a pleasure. Always a
and
pleasure.
Thanks for the information. I think it's very, very useful information.
Yes.
Like I said, as we get into the Christmas season, where you're thinking about what gifts to buy for people. If you're gonna buy a car, you could buy one for me. I promise that I will do my due diligence as well. Yeah? Please take a quick break and
There are
come
some
back
Hot
with more.
Wheels that will be very
Some
well
Hot
for
Wheels.
you.
My aunt do me that one, yeah? But that's a whole other conversation altogether. We take that break and come back with more in our morning show. Stay tuned. When I turned 17, I told my aunt I want a car. She went and buy a toy car.
Yes.
And a big way, look, I buy a car for you. And I run outside with it.
Got you to know love and